So we have ourselves two moves that I wanted to go out there and talk about in a video today. We can just combine them. They're Western Canadian stories. The Oilers and the Canucks are both saying goodbye, and maybe a little bit earlier than we may have anticipated as well. Let's go in chronological order here and talk about the first piece of news from 9 a.m. this morning. The Edmonton Oilers have released forward Mike Hoffman from his PTO. Now, this is actually interesting, because if you look at Mike Hoffman and what he was able to do with the Oilers this preseason, he actually was a point-per-game guy. Yeah, you kind of have to do a double take with that one. He had a goal and 3 assists in the 4 games that he had played. However, point production aside, goal production aside, he wasn't really the best. And you can say a lot of the same things that we could talk about with Mike Hoffman in general in regards to this Oilers stint that he had. Even a lot of the replies on the Oilers tweet, I think Hoffman is going to get a contract somewhere else. He proved he can still play bottom 6. The dude actually blows. He was literally on here to fill some veteran spots in the roster for preseason. Shouldn't be a shock to anyone. I thought he played well, but some tough competition in the bottom 6 and some youth that have been turning heads in camp make this unsurprising. Wishing him the best. Realistically, Mike Hoffman, who is now in the latter half of his career, I don't think anybody is expecting Hoffman to be getting 30-goal seasons anytime soon. He's 34 years old, so obviously this would be more so of a depth add for other teams that are not as, let's just say, deep as the Edmonton Oilers are, who don't have as many guys vying for spots like the Oilers. And for Hoffman, being a point per game obviously works out well in his favor. It shows teams that he can still produce. It shows teams that he still has the capabilities of doing what it is that we're expecting out of Mike Hoffman. He can still score goals. He can still do what he needs to do to stay alive in the NHL. It's just unfortunate for Hoffman, not really for the Oilers, but for Hoffman, that other guys like Vasily Podkolzin, for example, played well. Raphael Lavoie was playing well in the preseason too. These guys, I'd say, deserve spots in the lineup, especially in a bottom 6 capacity, much more than Mike Hoffman. Hoffman might be able to get a few more goals here and there, especially if you put him in a specific spot on the power play, but Raphael Lavoie, he's a gamer. Vasily Podkolzin, he is a gamer. Podkolzin is a lot more versatile, useful, and all around just valuable than what Mike Hoffman provides. So I could totally understand it from the Oilers team building point of view. Hey, Hoffman scored a bunch of points. He was able to come in here. He had a veteran presence, but he's not going to be more useful to the Edmonton Oilers than some of the other younger dudes that had already made an impact. Now, just because Hoffman was cut from the Oilers, that doesn't mean he's not going to get a contract anywhere else. That remains to be seen. There is a world where I think Mike Hoffman doesn't sign right away and he kind of goes the Phil Kessel route. There's some buzz picking up about him, let's say in December, January, and then maybe he signs to add on to a playoff roster. Who really knows? But at the end of the day, the Edmonton Oilers, with the lack of Evander Kane, I thought that it actually was a pretty reasonable possibility that Hoffman got a regular contract. They just added Jeff Skinner. They have all these top-tier forwards. Maybe adding Mike Hoffman would have been the extra bottom 6 piece they needed. But no, there are some other guys that have been showing off well. They have younger dudes, and Evander Kane is not expected to miss the entire season, so I think it is reasonable for the Oilers to let him go, especially when you talk about the defensive consistency, or inconsistency, I guess you could say. Yeah, he's consistent at being inconsistent. That's Mike Hoffman's game to a T. He can score goals, he put him on the power play, he puts that shot in, it's great. But he doesn't really do anything else, and it's been like that for years, and I think a lot of Oilers fans who are watching the preseason kind of saw that too. So if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel about Mike Hoffman getting the boot, and do you think he is good enough to sign a contract elsewhere? A lot of folks are bringing up other teams like Calgary, for example, teams that might need extra forward depth, teams that could use a little bit extra support in regards to their goal scoring. But at the end of the day, it's not with Edmonton. They are relying on Podkolzin, I think, to go out there and fulfill some sort of a bottom six role. Meanwhile, speaking of Podkolzin, I wanted to talk about the team in which Podkolzin came from. The Vancouver Canucks also had themselves their own announcement today, stating that they had released Sammy Blais from his PTO. Now, I actually was a lot more optimistic on Blais heading into the preseason, mostly because I was thinking about the really good stint that he had towards the end of his St. Louis Blues career. After he left New York and went back to St. Louis, he was producing points like crazy. And as a rough, tough, physical wrecking ball of a dude that he has established himself to being, I was kind of saying this guy could provide some good value for the Canucks if you wanted to have Blais with Kiefer Sherwood and whomever else on the fourth line. That'd be a wrecking ball line. You'd have a lot of physical agitation from a group of guys like that. But unfortunately, watching Blais throughout the preseason, he just wasn't that good. He wasn't too effective, and I think he kind of lost a step compared to what we've expected out of Blais in the best seasons of his career. Now, to be fair, I say best seasons of his career. Sammy Blais was never really a top point producer, with exception to that 20 points in 31 games he had with St. Louis in 22-23. Every other year, he's been more so of a 15-ish point guy. Maybe if you do the math over 82 games, he should have gotten a lot more points. But Sammy Blais, Stanley Cup champion, he's got some value for sure. It's just with Vancouver, a team that has so many extra forwards already, it was always going to be difficult for a guy like Blais to crack the lineup, and his play, unfortunately, was not good enough to force himself and do that. So between Blais and PDG and Niels Oman and Linus Karlsson and Aatu Räty, there are a lot of guys that could have realistically gotten a spot for the team next year, especially if you wanted to project guys like, for example, Dakota Joshua. Let's say Dakota Joshua doesn't come back right away. Who do they get? Who do they use in that spot? Aatu Räty? He played really well in this preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets himself a role in some sort of a capacity this upcoming year. And quite frankly, if you're putting it up to me, I'd say that Aatu Räty was straight up better than Sammy Blais in the preseason. Plus, he's younger. Plus, he's a center. Plus, there's a lot of value there. Plus, the Canucks acquired Räty from the Bo Horvat trade, so they kind of have to use him. Okay, maybe that's kind of an unfair way to view players and prospects, but Aatu Räty, for example, played awesome in the preseason, and hopefully we'll see more out of him today. Is he playing today? I'm not really too sure, but either way, Sammy Blais is gone from the Vancouver Canucks. It's still listed here that he'll play for Abbotsford in the upcoming season. I'm not sure if he got himself a contract with the Abbotsford Canucks. Actually, let's go out there and search that up here on Elite Prospects. If he did get an ATO or something with Abbotsford, I completely missed it. But Sammy Blais, yeah, okay, Abbotsford Canucks, and there is an article here. Confirmed transaction to the Abbotsford Canucks. Yeah, okay, he did get himself a contract with Abby, so he'll still be in the system. That's great. If there really is a need for Vancouver to get themselves another guy, if they really wanted to say, hey, Sammy Blais playing awesome in the AHL, let's say he's a double point per game guy and he's out producing Räty and Baines and everybody else, let's say he gets 2 points a game, the Canucks can then sign Blais to a regular NHL contract, then he'll get called up and then he'll play and everything will be great. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Sammy Blais and his departure from Vancouver. What are your thoughts on Mike Hoffman and his departure from the Edmonton Oilers? How do you feel about these two guys and their careers going forward? If you're an Oilers Canucks fan, does this really surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.